Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Dial, who's going to talk about Power School for a moment.
Okay, and I'm going to take my mask off as I talk, just so it's not muffled. I'm going to spend a couple minutes real quick just going through Power School, some basic Power School 101. Anything I talk about, I'm going to put a link in the chat to that PDF file so that you have a copy of it. Also, what I'm going to do real quick is share the screen, so I think it's easier to understand what's going on if you can kind of see it. So let's see here. Can everyone see that okay? Okay. So just real quick on Power School, we get a lot of calls every day about different attendance codes. And so I kind of wanted to go through just real quick what those are so everybody understands how we're doing things. Some things are a little bit different with COVID than we've done in the past. As always, a U is what we don't want. That's an unexcused absence. It means the student is absent. No one has notified the office about the absence. A lot of times it will appear as an A when it first gets put in, and then it'll get changed to a U at the end of the day if nothing's been done. And again, that can negatively affect a student's grade or harm their attendance. An excused absence, this is when we have confirmation from a parent or guardian that the reason is health related. In the past, we always wanted a doctor's note with that. Because of COVID and things like that, we're not asking that anyone bring in a doctor's note every time. So if you call us and let us know that your student is staying home and it's health related, we'll mark it as X. Anyone who's being told to quarantine because of COVID will also be treated as excused. We do have to mark it as an absence, that they're not in the building, but it will be excused and it will not go against the student's grade. It will not affect A+ in any way, shape, or form. So if you see an X, that usually means it's health related. Verified is any kind of other absence. It's not health related. You're on a family trip, the kiddo overslept, their car broke down. So we know that they're going to be gone, but it will not negatively affect their student grade. After a while, it could affect their A+ if they have a lot of those. You know, their car breaks down a lot or they oversleep a lot. That could have a negative effect, but at least we know why they're gone. And then V, this is kind of a new one for virtual attendance. This is when students are not supposed to be at school. So a hybrid student, A through K, is going to have V marked Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So they're supposed to be here Monday and Tuesday. V will be for the days that they're not supposed to be here. That, though, is treated as being present. So for A+ purposes and attendance, they're not getting counted that against them for being V. S is for school business, job shadow, sports competition, band competition. Again, this is treated as a kid was at school. So it is a present code. And the last one, we don't use it a lot, but for juniors and seniors, we have the CV code. And that is when they're on a college visit. All we ask for that is that they bring back something from the college that's saying they were there. And that's it. As far as calls, there's a call that goes out around 11 a.m. every day. It pulls the report about 10:45, and the call goes out 11. That's letting you know that your child's been marked absent. And so again, any kind of A or U would trigger that phone call. And at that time, please give us a call to correct that if there's a mistake. It also goes out at 6:15 that night if it hasn't been fixed by the end of the day. And again, 321-5322 will clear up anything that you have confusion about. But we get a lot of response from parents when that midday phone call goes out because maybe they forgot to call or they didn't realize their kid overslept or things like that. And then lastly, grades are in Power School, but teachers are going to use Canvas a lot. And we'll talk about that later this morning with Ms. Smith and Ms. Gosney about what that looks like with grades. But Canvas is where most of the grades are going to be stored. Power School is going to be where kind of the final grade is stored. So what you see in Power School may not be an accurate reflection of what's going on in class. It's going to be the official grade that gets pulled at the end of the semester on transcripts. So if there's not a lot in there right now, that's okay. Again, Mrs. Gosney and Mrs. Smith are going to talk about what that looks like right now with Canvas and grading. But do note there are grades in Power School. But again, that's where most of our families get their notifications for attendance. So that's kind of a quick Power School 101. Again, I'll unshare my screen. And then again, I'll put a link to that right there in the chat. So if anybody has any questions about that, that document right there is in the chat. And then at this time, if anybody has any questions about Power School, I'd love to answer them.
Yeah, and there aren't any questions right now in the chat, but if anyone has any questions regarding either Power School in terms of attendance, grading, or even if you just want to ask a question about COVID procedures, since that's so closely related to Power School, now would be a great time to do it. So if you're unable to use the chat, we probably could take an audio question if anyone has one at this time. And that's okay. That means Dr. Dial did a really good job explaining it. Nice job, Dr. Dial. I will add also just that recently, and it's systemic, it's school-wide, it's district-wide, it's nationwide. This blended model that we're in, it's been really difficult for students. So as we have gotten feedback from parents, students, and staff, hopefully you've noticed over the last 3 weeks, we've really tried to scale back the workload. We just came off a freeze week, which was really good for a lot of students. We surveyed students this week, and 60% of students said they're feeling caught up with their schoolwork. Over half our students said they do feel like the workload has been decreased. So just if you have any questions or input about those procedures or what we're trying to do to help students in their grades, currently, just always feel free to reach out. So, and you can still feel free to ask questions about PowerSchool and anything related to PowerSchool as the presentation goes on. But at this time, okay, here we have, yes. And if anyone is asking, if you got on a little bit late, we are recording this, this broadcast, so it will be available. So anything you missed from Dr. Dial, if you're just now hopping on, we will make sure we share that. We'll send that out in our s'more that goes out on Sundays. So great question from Heather. Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Ghazi, and she's going to talk us through Canvas, which is definitely something that we're all utilizing a lot more this year than we have in the past with our blended model.
Okay, so one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we've heard from parents is that they don't know what they're looking for when they go into Canvas. So their kids are telling them, you know, I'm doing everything, I don't have anything today. And when parents are observers or they're trying to check that, they don't know what to actually look for. So I'm going to pull up a Canvas course, and I'm going to pull up chemistry for us. So this is just one of our, and I am in student view. So if you're a parent observer on Canvas, this is what you would see when you log in. This is, if you're not a parent observer, there's a video in our s'more that walks you through how to do that. But you also could just have your kids log in to their Canvas and show you what they see. And I'll show you things that you can be looking for if they're like, I don't know where to go, or I don't even know where to turn things in. I'm just going to kind of show you some things that you can be looking for to see if they really are staying caught up on their work, or what they can do if they get confused. So this is the homepage. A lot of our teachers have this exact same kind of model where they have these buttons right here. The first thing I want to point out is this virtual office hours. So every course may not have a button that looks just like this, but there is something either up here in announcements or it's right here that says virtual office hours. And that is a link that is available for our teachers. Have 2 hours every single week that they have a Microsoft Teams call open, that if kids are struggling or they don't know what's due, or they just need extra help, teachers are just sitting and staring sadly at their computers, waiting for kids to get on and ask them questions. So if your student is at home and they have a question, ask them if they've tried office hours. In the s'more that we send out on Sundays, we've included a document that lists every single teacher and where when their office hours are. So you know, okay, so if you have a question about chemistry, this is when Miss Bowman is available. And also, if it doesn't even have to be with Miss Bowman, it could be any of our chemistry teachers. And I think that they've listed everybody's. I'm going to click on here. Yeah, so for chemistry, they have every single teacher listed and when their office hours are. So that's just something to kind of be aware of that our teachers do offer. So virtual office hours is the first thing I wanted to point out. The next thing I want to point out are announcements. So this is where teachers post what's happening that week. So that's always the first place you or your student should look, is in announcements. So, and I happen to pick one who's real cute with the little emojis, but they go through like, this is what we're doing this week. And some of them do videos, but all of them list kind of a weekly to do so that your student sees for the entire week, these are the things that you have to be doing, okay? And this one is actually going to link it all right here. But if they don't link it in announcements, the next place they would go is into modules. So you can get to modules either by clicking on the link here, or you can click it over here. And this is where you'll see what they have to do for this week. So this is what has to be done this week, are these two things. So when you click in it, it tells you the learning target, the mini lesson, and then this is where they would click for the assignment. So as a parent, I went through this week earlier, and there's not a way for me to show you how to tell if they're submitting it this week. So I'm going to have to go down a little bit. But if you're curious, like, is my kid actually submitting work? Because they're telling me they're doing the work, they're telling me all these things, but then I'm hearing from teachers they're not doing anything. So I want to show you what it looks like if they've actually submitted something. So let me found it yesterday. That's a quiz. I don't want that one. Maybe it's this guy. Nope. What it will say is if you click on an actual assignment, if it says submit, it means they haven't submitted it. So if they pull up an assignment and you want to say, show me you've submitted it, if they click on the assignment and it still says submit, they have not submitted it. If you click on the assignment and it says resubmit, they have submitted it. And there's a way that you can even see what they've submitted, because some kids might be uploading a document, but it's not the right one. So you can go in and check that way. I can't click on grades because I'm not a student, but if you clicked on an assignment, when the teachers are giving feedback, like when they're giving a score for something, there's a way to put a comment below. And that's a lot of times where a teacher might say, you're at a 6 out of 10. And then they'll put in the comment button, they'll put feedback that shows what they need to do to move up from a 6 to a higher grade level. So that's kind of the quick rundown of what to look for when you're looking. Oh wait, here, let me try if this one's a good one to show you. Nope, that's a quiz. I wish I could find an assignment for you, but that's just the biggest thing. If it still says submit, they have not submitted it. If it says resubmit, they did submit it. So that's kind of my rundown there. Are there questions in the chat? I took the chat away on my screen.
Yes, there are a couple. So we had one from Jennifer. So she asked about how we could see if students have submitted through the observer mode. And I asked her to let us know if.
Let me see it. Yeah.
So she said, yes, you answered her question. She said, is there a report at all, or do we have to go assignment by assignment?
You could also, I don't know, because I'm in student view, I don't know if this will show me. Oh, it will. So if you click on grades over here, so see how it says missing. I'm not a very good student in this class because I haven't done anything. So over here, these are all the things that were supposed to be completed, and it says missing. So that means I haven't submitted it. So this is even, I didn't realize it would let me do that in this class, but if you click on grades, right here, these are all the assignments, and if it says missing, it means I didn't do it. So that's a good quick way to kind of stay up on top of whether or not your students actually turning the stuff in.
Okay, the next question from Susan was, where was the general list of office hours for teachers? And that should be on their homepage.
Yeah, well, so the general list, we send out a s'more every Sunday. It's kind of our weekly newsletter, and we just put a link to the document that has every single teacher in it. So you don't have to go class by class to find them. You can look there. If you're wanting to know just for in chemistry, who do I need help with? It's on their page, and every single PLT, so like every ELA 1 teacher, every chemistry teacher, every history teacher, they're all available for every single student. So if your student's teacher has office hours and your student can't attend during that hour for whatever reason, they can ask any of the teachers and they can be willing to help. So that's why it's helpful to kind of have all of them, is so they can ask any teacher for help.
And I would also add too, if the office hours don't work for your student, that just, if you or your student will reach out to the teacher, they can always find time to hop on a Teams call. So the next question is from Linda, and she says, so we can't see what has been submitted from parent observer mode.
When you click on grade, I'm not in parent observer, I'm in student observer, which I believe is pretty similar. In parent observer, I don't know, do you have this grades button? Because I think that would be might clarify that. And you can always just make your kid log in too. And that's what I do. I have a middle schooler in a 6th grade, at one at the 6th grade center, and I am not a parent observer, but I just sit next to him and I say, log in and show me your things. So that's what I do, and it works for me, is just sitting next to him and be like, let's look at your grades, let's see what's missing, and that just kind of helps me stay involved. But I think as parent observer, you still have access to this little grades button.
Okay, so the next question is from Heather. Well, I think it's more of a statement, but she said in parent observer mode, it always looks like it needs to be submitted, even when it already has. We have to look at it in the grades
Okay.
page to see if it was submitted.
Thank
And
you.
there
Thank
can
you for
see when it's been
clarifying
submitted.
that.
So the next question is from Melissa. How can you tell from Canvas what is a standard assignment versus a regular assignment? It's hard to tell when multiple assignments have points, but they don't apply to standards and go to Power School. So Melissa, that's a really good question. We've asked our teachers to start differentiating that by either some use emojis, some highlight it to let you know what is actually going in the grade book. So if that is confusing in some teachers' pages, it was about a week ago when we did a big Canvas audit, and there were 6 points that we asked teachers to make sure were present in all Canvas pages just to make them more uniform. So it was easier for parents to see. And one of those was differentiating between practice and grading. We're gonna try to narrow that down even more and really scale back what resources are available that aren't actually part of the grade, because we know that's been tough for a lot of our students just to differentiate. So we'll make sure that we do a better job with that, Melissa, but please do reach out to teachers if you have any confusion around that, and then reach out to us if you're not getting your questions answered. From Linda, it says, I don't see a grades link in all of my students' classes, just some of them.
I'm not sure what that might be. If it's just certain classes where they don't have that, you might reach out to their teacher. I don't know if the teacher maybe has hidden it from view, but they shouldn't have. So if you just want to send that teacher an email asking that's not, there's a little button over here that has an eyeball with a dash through it. They can make it visible. So that might be something, or if you want to reach out to one of us and let us know so we can go in and look at that, but they should be visible. So that's probably something that they need to uncheck on their Canvas course so you have access to it. So just reach out to one of us and we can look into it, or the teacher, and they can just fix it on their end.
And Linda, I also made it. Yeah, I made a note of that. We'll look into that school-wide and just make sure that's available to parents. So that's why we're so glad we're doing this, so you all can help us understand where your struggles are and what we can do better on our end. So thank you all very much for the questions and for the feedback. If you will look in the chat too, Molly Smith just dropped the Google page that has all of the teachers' office hours. So thank you so much for those questions. Feel free, if you still have questions regarding Canvas, because I know that's new to all of us, feel free to keep dropping them in the chat. I really hope that I didn't miss any. I'm trying to stay current on the questions and not skip around. I'm trying to go right down the line. So if I missed anyone, just let us know. So at this time, we are going to turn it over to Miss Smith, Molly Smith, and she is going to talk a little bit about standards-based grading for our third and final topic today.
All right, good morning. So standards-based grading, let me share my screen here. Can you guys see my PowerPoint? Okay, so first of all, I want to talk a little bit about like what a standard is. Standards are not new. Teachers have always had them. Just the way they've graded has been differently. So traditionally, kids get graded on this worksheet, this activity, this classwork, and then this test. And with standards-based grading, grades are based on those standards that the state of Missouri gives to teachers. So in the grade book, instead of seeing worksheet, you will see standards. So what happens is your kid's going to get a grade based on what they know in relation to that standard, not necessarily if they've completed worksheet A, B, C, D, E, and F, whatever. And part of the reason we went to this right now is just if kids are struggling with the amount of work, if they can show us what they know, then that can help us limit what they actually need to do. So with standards-based, this is kind of the scale that we've adopted. So everything in the gradebook should be out of 10. And so a 0 would be just they haven't done anything at all. They've showed us no evidence that they've even attempted the standard. And then it jumps automatically up to a 5, which is built in to help students out, to make that hole that they get in not as deep. So if they are trying, they will get a 5. Now, trying does not mean that they're submitting blank documents onto Canvas, but if they are attempting, they should get a 5. And then a 6 would be with some help. The student's still not quite able to recall basic fundamental skills or concepts. And then a 7 would be like the student understands the simpler concepts, but isn't quite to the advanced concepts yet. And then an 8 is they get the simple concepts and they're really close to those advanced concepts, but they're somewhere in between. A 9 is they get the concepts, they get the standards, and then a 10 is kind of like they can now take those standards and they can go above and beyond. So maybe they can take 1 or 2 standards together and apply them to something else. So that would be a 10. So when you are in a grade book, in comments, when I get in, a lot of this is in Canvas because most of our feedback is in Canvas and grades are mostly in PowerSchool. So when you get in and you see those comments in there, it might have a couple different attempts on there. So it might say like on a CFA, which is a common formative assessment, or like a small quiz, a student got a 7 on that standard. But then it may say like on the next CFA or the next unit test, the student got a 9. Well, the student then should have that 9 for that grade. Does that kind of make sense? What questions do we have about standards based?
So the chat is open if anyone has any questions. I think a couple of highlights while we're waiting on questions is that students always have an opportunity to redo assignments for a higher grade. Recently too, just as I mentioned earlier, as we've just seen how difficult it is to work through this blended model, we've really scaled back the amount of work that teachers are giving. So I see a question from Susan. Can you explain a little more between a CFA and the other one?
Okay, so a CFA would almost be like a really small quiz. So they're like little knowledge checks as they go along throughout the unit. So they may give them once or twice throughout a unit to kind of just check in here or there to see how they've done. And then at the end, like a test would be their unit example. So it may have all of the standards together on it on that one test. But if on that test or on that final project or that final big make or whatever it is, they get a higher score than they did on that CFA, it should replace that grade in that standard. Does that answer your question? I can't see the chat when my screen's sharing.
Yes, she said yes. So thank you very much. So as Molly mentioned, they can always go back and take it again too. If your student's behind in a couple of classes too, our best piece of advice is for them to stay current on what's going on now. I know that I've heard from some families that their student kind of started back in September and they're trying to catch up now, but we would just say, try to stay current with what's going on now. And then if you have some things missing from previous, just communicate with the teacher, whether it's the student or yourself, and say, hey, what should I work on first? I think that's really important for students to not see it as the whole thing at once, but see it as what's one assignment at a time that I can tackle. So that's what standards-based grading really tries to do, is to focus on one standard at a time rather than entire unit or an entire semester of work. So do you have any other questions regarding standards-based grading?
Ms. Gosney and I were working with a student the other day trying to figure out where to start. It was a student that had dug a pretty deep hole. And so she was asking me specific questions about math because I oversee the math department. And he just basically hadn't gotten started yet this year. And so where to start, and the teacher said, like, let's look at the unit review and see what you can do and what you can't do. And then we'll just take the unit test and not have to worry about all those worksheets and things leading up to it, because all those grades on those standards on those tests will get plugged in for all those standards leading up to it. So to just kind of help the students focus and not make it seem so overwhelming, it's great for that too if they get behind.
We just had a great question here. How often are grades being transferred from Canvas to PowerSchool? We had a couple classes with many graded assignments in Canvas, but the student still has an F in PowerSchool, and it has been that way for weeks. So I can start that answer and then definitely shift it over to Ms. Smith. We should not, what is in Canvas is not always representative of their actual grade in PowerSchool, because a lot of times teachers will assign points to a practice assignment or just something they're doing in class just so they can give students feedback. So that doesn't always mean it's their grade in PowerSchool. If your student has been sitting at an F and you feel like their grade, that's not reflective of what they've been doing, just please reach out to the teacher or reach out to us. You could even just email me and let me know what class that is and what's going on, and I'd be happy to do some research there. So yeah, Canvas is more about feedback, And then Power School is more about their actual grade. That's what would show on their transcript and their report card. So just reach out to me if you're having any problems with that and you're not understanding why the grade isn't as current as you think it should be. So great question from Melissa. Will finals be a test over all of the standards they have done for the semester? You want me to tackle that, Ms. Smith?
Oh, you can. We just talked about it yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. Finals are going, we're definitely going to be cautious about what finals look like, just given the circumstances. If you aren't aware, our semester ends later this school year. It will end the Friday before Martin Luther King Day weekend. So January 15th is our last day. And what we ask students to do over the break and coming back from the break, it will look very different. So I would not expect cumulative finals in most of our classes. Some exceptions could be like a dual credit course where we're working with a college or a specified curriculum. So we'll be in communication about that. But our last 2 weeks of the semester coming out of break probably won't be your traditional finals. Students will have a lot of opportunities toward the end of the semester to go back and improve grades on standards that maybe they're not satisfied with, but we probably, most classes won't be giving a comprehensive final.
Susan, I'm reading your question. If they're behind, should they just focus on unit tests and not the quizzes? I think that's going to vary class by class, and I think it's important just to keep in contact with your students' teachers. So in that student I was talking about, I reached out to the teacher and said, hey, where should they start? Where should they focus on? And that's what they told me. I said, where it's going to give them the biggest bang for their buck, and that's what I got. That's the answer I got. So I think if you are curious where to start, if your student's behind, the best thing to do is always contact your teachers and kind of ask them, say, we're trying to get caught up. Where am I going to get the biggest bang for my buck? Where do I start? Where do I focus? So it just might depend class to class a little bit.
Definitely. And teachers, they're ready for that question and to help students prioritize. So great question too. If your child has an IEP or any accommodations, do they still get time testing? So it would depend on what the student's accommodations are. If they get extended time, et cetera, then we would want to make sure that we're adhering to that. So again, if you have any questions or if you feel that maybe the accommodations aren't being followed to the way that you'd hoped, just reach out to me, reach out to any of us on the admin team, and we can help you through that. So we don't do a lot of time testing here at Oak Park High School, but on Canvas, since there are so many options, you may see that some of those assessments have time limits, et cetera. So if you see that and you feel like that isn't in your student's best interest, regardless of what their accommodations are, just reach out and let us know, and we'll always work with you and try to help on that. So any final questions before we end our time? Mr. Valadez here is making a plug for winter activities. So he said, if anyone's not reading the chat, winter sports will begin November 2nd. Make sure physicals get turned in and your students are checking academic eligibility. I know that he's been working really hard to make sure students are maintaining eligibility if they want to be in activities. So he talks about that we're offering a study hall for them on Saturdays from 9 to 11 for any student that is failing a class. So feel free to reach out to Mr. Valadez's office with any questions on these topics. So great plug there, Mr. Valadez. And we have tutoring after school as well. Like we said, we've really tried to pare things down. The two words that we're really talking about this semester are grace and flexibility. So we want to show a ton of grace to our students, be very flexible. We know that there are students that are working, they're taking care of family members. There are a lot of reasons that they can't be at school. So we want to make sure we're helping them out. Have one final question here. So can you chat a bit about freeze week? Are some worked on missing assignments? When he checked his announcements for the week yesterday, he learned that 3 teachers still had work expectations last week or new assignments due last week. So if your student is in some AP dual credit classes, there are some things that they needed to do. Also, there are a couple teachers that had to move their freeze week just because of some of the things going on with their curriculum. For example, our algebra teachers, they had a test plan and they didn't want to make students have to wait to take that. So they just moved around their freeze week. So if you have any concerns about what was going on during freeze week, just shoot me an email with those specific concerns and I'll make sure they get answered and making sure that your students had ample time to work on some missing things. We're going to look at another freeze week in the near future just to make sure that our students are given opportunities to stay caught up. We know that this semester is is one we'll never forget, and we're hoping things can get back to normal soon, but we're just still trying to learn a lot as we go. But grace and flexibility is really what we're focused on. And please know that at the end of the semester, we're going to do right by your student and always err on the side of our students here at Oak Park High School. So we so appreciate all of your support. We appreciate you hopping on with us this morning. If you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, we're going to try to do this again in November and do this monthly. So if you have any topics you'd like us to discuss, shoot me an email or put it on the Let's Talk app through the district and we'll look at that. But please be looking at some future topics. So I will answer this last question. Any word on going back full time? And they talked about Platte County maybe going back in January. So Dr. Clemens and our district leaders are in conversations with Clay County, and they used several different pieces of criteria to determine when we may be able to go back full time. Well, I don't have an answer for that. I do know that a survey will be coming out maybe this week, if not by next week, for all families. And it will be asking you if you'd like to, if there was an option to return full time, would you want to exercise that option? Would you want to exercise a virtual option or potentially something in between? So please look for that survey from the district. That will help them make decisions regarding what we can and can't do here at the building level. So great question from Melissa. If you need any more information, just please shoot me an email. So I want to thank everyone again, one final time. Thanks for spending your morning with us. This was really helpful for us too. Those questions definitely help us think about what we need to do moving forward. So again, thank you. Shoot us an email, give us a call, let us know what you'd like to hear more about. And we hope that you all will join us for this again in November. So thank you again, everyone, and have a great day.